Right back at it with another episode of the Waterboys podcast. Julian McKenzie here with you. Frank Pavan on the other side of the Zoom call. Frank, say hello to the people.
What's up, everyone? Episode 16. Is that correct? Yes, last week was 15. This is 16. That's how numbers work. You go up by one. Um, Man, how have you been, Julian? The weather is looking nice, I must say.
I just want to say, Frank and I, we come in on a Zoom call. We say, all right, we have all these different things we want to talk about, and we hop into it. We spent the last two episodes doing interviews with guests. You've probably heard the episode with Cabby Richards. You've heard the episode with Ariel Helwani. So this is the first time in a while. It's just going to be an episode with Frank and I talking. We spent about like 25 minutes just like obviously talking about the show, but obviously talking about, just life. We talked about the weather. And as of right now, even though it is cold where we are at right now, by the looks of things with the weather over the next few days, it's going to pick up and we're going to see temperatures like above freezing. And it's still sunny outside. And that means with spring on the horizon, I want to be outside. Frank, I know you want that too. I want that sunlight. I want to, feel the vitamin D. Like I need it. And I know you need it. So I'm very excited that we're both excited about these conditions that are warming up.
Like I told you during show prep, I'm happy I get to see my sidewalk through my window now. And my grass and a bit of my grass. So feels good. Feels good. But what do we got? What do we got in the world of sports, Julian? What are we going to be covering today?
Oh, dude, we have, every time we do these episodes, it's always stacked with something. We're going to talk about hockey. Yeah, we're going to get a little, sports media rights here. I feel like Ashcan would probably like this episode. He's very much into that business world, right?
He's into the business world. He's into the little specifics of contract agreements and whatnot. Yeah, he'd enjoy it.
Exactly. So we're going to be talking about the ESPN NHL deal. It's a 7-year deal, which will see the sport of hockey back on ESPN. We're going to talk about NFL free agency and a longtime quarterback announcing their retirement over the weekend. We'll touch off on the association. That's basketball. For those who don't know the slang, Joel Embiid got hurt, and Klay Thompson looks as if he's going to be back next year. And we're also going to touch on boxing. And I'm not going to act like I am a big boxing aficionado, but when I see Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury about to fight each other, I get excited about that. So there's a lot of stuff we're going to cover on this week's edition of the Waterboys podcast. And, oh, shoot, we didn't even talk about the fact that we wrote it in our notes here, the potential of a CFL XFL partnership.
Yes.
This is going to be the first time we mentioned the CFL on this podcast.
Yes, I definitely want to talk to you about that one. I've got some questions.
I have questions too.
All right, let's go. Yeah, we stacked episode. We try to cover everything. But one thing off the top I got to say is please rate, comment, subscribe wherever you listen or get your podcast. We're also up on YouTube as well. Just got to put that PSA at the beginning of the episode. And let's get into it, Julian. Is there anything else you want to mention off the top?
I guess not me. Sure, I don't really have anything I need to mention, supposedly, or nothing I necessarily want to bring attention to, I guess, or I don't know. I don't want to necessarily do it. Unless you wanted to.
That's right. You're cueing me in
now.
Here.
It just seems funny? Like I was, because you're the one who said you're going to bring it up. So I was like, so you're not going to bring it up? Because I'm not going to be that asshole and be like, I did not want to be that asshole and be like, you're not going to bring up the news? You're not going to tell everybody what I'm doing?
I
didn't want to be all like, hey, oh man. Anyway.
That took way too long for me to pick up on, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, yeah, we got this one topic we want to touch off the top before we get into everything, and I'm waiting for him to get to it. But of course, what we spent 25 minutes show prepping about, we mentioned it, and I just forget it now. No, we've got a big announcement to make on this week's show. Julian is officially a member of The Athletic. A part of their NHL vertical as an editor. I am pumped for this dude. Look at his reactions right now. Fist pumping at the screen. Julian, I'm happy for you. Couldn't have happened to a better person. Tell us a bit about it. You're starting on day one is approaching. So tell me, walk me through what it was like, who you've spoken to, and what you're feeling.
Dude, I'm going to be working with The Athletic as an associate editor for their NHL coverage. My first day starts with them next week. I should stress, even though I will be working with The Athletic and there are some gigs I had to give up from a writing standpoint, it does not mean I will be leaving this podcast. So rest assured, I will still be on the Waterboys podcast with the homie Frank Pavent. It was cool. The opportunity kind of came about. I reached out. Well, no, I didn't reach out. They reached out to me a couple of times, had some interviews with some of the editors. I'm going to be working with James Myrtle, Aaron Johansson, Craig Custance as well, for big hockey fans who remember his work as well. You're probably familiar with all of those guys, really. And Arpon Basu I've had conversations with as well. Just been a lot of talking, a lot of emails, a lot of waiting, a lot of just figuring out how stuff is going. And I've had to say goodbye to a lot of the other different gigs I've had. For those who follow me closely, CTV, I'm not going to be doing weather at the end of this week anymore. After the end of this week, I should say, the Canadian Press, 538.com. I have a piece coming out with them, which will be my last one. Yahoo Sports, I was writing for them for a bit, but I'll still contribute to their weekly NHL podcast for those who listen over there. But a lot of changes over these last few weeks. Frank, and I appreciate you being so patient with me over this last little while as well. It's been a bit of a difficult time just kind of navigating everything and making sure everything is okay and seeing if I was even going to get the job. I didn't even know I was going to get the job. They kept telling me like, hey, just be patient. I was like, I have no clue if I'm going to get this job or not. And then they called me and they were like, we want to offer you the job. And I just felt really happy in that moment, man.
I'm happy for you. Like I said, no other person I can think of deserves it more. And so I know you mentioned Arpon Basu. He obviously works for The Athletic, but based out of Montreal. Are they taking in where you're located, like into the conversation? Are you going to be working as an NHL for the Habs, or is it really any team or any coverage? You don't know yet, do you?
I'm probably just editing like stuff that comes in on every team.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be doing anything with regards to the Habs or the Laval Rocket. I don't know. That's not a no necessarily, because they did say there would be opportunities for me to write and have bylines. I know a lot of people have been asking about that, but I don't know where those bylines will be on. It makes sense. It would make sense if they were about the Habs or about the AHL. It would make sense.
Yep.
But I'm not going to speculate because who knows? I might just edit the whole time.
That's right. Take it one day at a time.
I'll mention one thing though.
Yeah,
I'll mention one thing I'm really excited about. I read in their onboarding process that they automatically for any of the writing staff, they see to it that they ask for Twitter verification. So if your boy gets verified, I'm letting everybody know.
That's big time there. Once you get that check mark, people know. People know what's up. So I'm going to be looking out for that.
If I don't get Twitter verified after I mention this off wax here, I'm going to look like a total idiot, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yes.
That's fine.
I mean, hey, at least
I hope I get it.
That's it. Let's hope. But no, congratulations again.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing your work in The Athletic. So let's get right into it. Shall we, Julian? Yes? Do you want to start with ESPN?
Let's start with ESPN. For those who missed it, 7-year deal for ESPN. They are the main broadcast rights holders for the sport. They're expected to have a second party jump in on the deal. We don't know who that is. We know NBC currently has those rights right now. It's entirely possible if they get back in it. It's entirely possible they don't get it. And this deal starts as soon as next year. 25 regular season games on ESPN or ABC, early round playoff series and 1 conference final each year, 4 Stanley Cup Finals series on ABC, and more than 1,000 games will be available for streaming on ESPN Plus. I sound like I'm reading a promo for ESPN. Maybe they should cut me a check. And while Frank and I are not based in America, I mean, I can only speak for me here. I'm kind of excited at the prospect that ESPN, which is the worldwide leader in sports, has said, you know what, we want hockey back in our lives. I'm a big fan of Gary Thorne, the play-by-play commentator who actually up until the end of last season was the play-by-play guy for. Do you know which Major League Baseball team?
Orioles.
Yes, he
Baltimore
was the
Orioles.
broadcaster for the
Yeah.
Orioles. His contract was not renewed at the end of last season, so Gary Thorne's looking for a job, and I mean, it just kind of fits perfectly, right? Like I go back to his work like all the time on YouTube. I can go back to what the 2003 Stanley Cup Finals. Paul Correa gets hit blindside by Scott Stevens. He comes back to the game. He scores that goal for the Ducks to win that game off the floor on the board. The Red Wings series, I think against the Capitals in the 90s. He had some great calls there. The Darren McCarty goal where he undresses Yanni Niedema. Raymond Bourque, the Cup race in 2001. Ruslan Fedotenko in 2004 with Tampa Bay. Andy Delmore's hat trick. I can do this for days on the amount of great calls Gary Thorne has had during his time with the worldwide leader in sports when it comes to hockey. He's the only play-by-play guy who can give me chills whenever I listen to him talk. And I know we've had Doc Emmerich, and I think he's one of the best to do it.
Yep.
I think the world of Chris Cuthbert as well, Bob Cole as well. Jim Houston is very good, but Gary Thorne is a cut above.
You're staying strictly
ESPN,
to hockey guys, correct?
Strictly to hockey,
Yeah.
strictly to hockey guys. That could easily be a whole podcast episode in itself if we start to talk about our favorite broadcasters for each sport, because I can just for each sport,
I know.
you could just go in on all these guys. I know I could, but just to say this deal is exciting because of the sport being on ESPN and its place in the sports landscape. I'm curious to see how they'll have the games in, but the one thing that would make this perfect is if they get Gary Thorne back in his spot. And on a podcast called Chell Squared, shout out to the homie Andrew Chelney for hosting that show. He interviewed his former broadcasting partner, Bill Clement, who said he would be totally open to going back to ESPN, but only if they ask Gary Thorne to go with him. So the ball's in ESPN's court here, as far as I'm concerned with Gary Thorne, but obviously a big deal for them that they have the broadcasting rights for hockey. So starting next season, you can watch NHL hockey, whether on the main network or on ESPN Plus, which is pretty exciting.
Definitely. And just to ask you a question, because I think you might know more than me, but
Sure.
We've already had on
That's
the show
subjective.
Greg Wyshynski, right? And
Yes.
he's obviously an NHL reporter, but he also works for ESPN. So it's really this is strictly for those who are maybe need some clarification. ESPN does cover NHL. I mean, they have people who work for it or cover the sport. But this is really strictly just broadcasting games up on TV. And will it be radio too?
I would imagine. I mean,
yeah.
I think it might differ with radio. I'm not sure how it works for that. I did not see that immediately listed, but I also think that depending on, I'm not going to actually speculate. I'm not going to act like I know. I would imagine yes, but I'm not going to act like I know. One thing that you made me think of with the fact that when you mentioned Greg Wyshynski and the people who cover NHL for ESPN, they definitely do that. But now that they have the rights, you have to imagine that there's going to be a door opening for more talent to appear at least on screen and possibly in written format. And hey, maybe for radio as well when it comes to covering the sport. It's an exciting opportunity that could open doors for more and more people to cover the sport, or at the very least, the familiar faces that we see on like an NBC potentially transfer over, and that turns into a domino effect somewhere else. Like it's something that will create opportunities. I was listening to the Staff and Graph. I'm name dropping a lot of shows today. The Staff and Graph podcast with Michael Stevens, and Steve Dangle was the guest host, and Steve mentioned one thing he was just genuinely excited for was just a lot of the younger people who have been trying to make a way for themselves in hockey media. It's not to say that they're all going to flock to ESPN, but if a company is going to open doors and opportunities are going to come up, I mean, maybe this is me being optimistic, but I try to carry on life optimistically that way. You have to think there's some kind of domino effect that's going to lead after that, where, if one guy who was working for this SB Nation website covering the NHL gets some part-time writing gig with the NHL and he has to leave that SB Nation gig, maybe that opens a door for somebody else. Maybe, there's so
domino
many things
effect
that could happen.
Yeah.
It's a domino effect. So I mean, I know the deal hasn't started yet. I know we haven't seen Stephen A. Smith talk about hockey yet. I know a lot of people seem to be excited about that, but I can't help but feel that this is a pretty cool thing to have happen.
Definitely.
Especially the Stephen A. Smith thing. That would be fun to see.
That
I've
would
come
be
around on that.
hilarious.
I
he would have to go through
first, but I wasn't sure.
He would have to go through a crash course. Wyshynski's probably gonna have to give him a crash course.
Dude, does he really? Here's the thing. Does he really have to do that? Does he really have to? Like, dude came up from Philadelphia, right? Like, he made a name for himself in Philadelphia. So, yes, I get he was around the Sixers a lot. He probably did coverage on the Eagles. But the Flyers aren't bums. Like,
you got to know the Broad Street Bullies. Stephen
A. Smith has to have some kind of working knowledge of, like, the Broad Street Bullies. Like, you know, I understand that Stephen A. Smith has shown that, like basketball and football are like his two main things. And if you see him on UFC coverage, you're just like, whatever. Or you see him on boxing, like, whatever. Like, who cares? But, like, Stephen A. Smith is a journalist at the end of the day, right? Like, he'll put in whatever work needs to be done to cover it. And even if he half-asses it to a certain extent, like, almost anything you'll say on the NHL might be 10 times more entertaining than
it'll to be completely honest with you, having Stephen A. comment on the NHL might bring more eyeballs than you'd expect, because people would want to see him open up to this completely new sport that we've just never heard him speak about. I would want to tune in. Obviously, if he can retain an audience is another question, but I definitely want to see him talk about Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby.
I think he would. And I think, like, and even I've been thinking about this, even if like a whole bunch of those people might just be like hate clicks, because I know they're going to be people who, as soon as like Stephen A. Smith like talks about like a player, hey, look at Patrick Lane in Columbus, like everyone's like, oh, Stephen A. Smith doesn't know shit about hockey. Like, people are going to jump on that. Like, that is, look, people willingly watch Stephen A. I don't know if you've seen those segments where he's in like one frame, and then you see like the baby-fied version of himself, like going back and forth. People go out of their way to watch Stephen A. Smith do that. You mean to tell me they're not going to watch him talk about hockey?
Yeah,
it works. Like, I think I was skeptical at first, but now like I'm on the other side of it. I want to see this work, and I want to see how well it do. I'm just in it for the laughs. The only other time I've seen Stephen A. Smith talk about hockey was when PK Subban showed up on First Take. Think about it. PK Subban's the only NHL player I could think of that ever appeared on that show.
I mean,
insane.
It's pretty insane. Yeah, it is.
Bro, there's so many.
I don't even know how to digest that.
Process it, right?
Yeah.
I
Anyways,
don't know.
I think at the end of the day, we could say that we're just both very excited for this this new acquisition.
So. Yeah, very much so. So yeah, that's all I got to say about the ESPN NHL deal. I know I don't want to spend the whole like 30-40 minutes talking about ESPN and the NHL. I know we have NFL news. Do we want to go there next?
Sure, why not? I mean, it's unfortunate because we're recording during the quote unquote tampering season, where obviously teams aren't allowed to communicate directly with players. And not they can officially, reports can come out where deals are agreed to, but the pen to paper doesn't happen just yet. And they can only communicate with the player agents at the moment. But a lot of big news, a lot of big names in the mix being signed and still out there on the market. Have you been, obviously the big one happened last week. Dak re-signs with the Cowboys. That's a bit of old news.
Man.
Yeah. They paid the man. They paid him. And
that's a lot of money for him, though. And I understand that I think he's got like $75 million in 1 year, or he could at least get that. That's a lot of money for him. But I'm just happy he's getting money. I'm happy he's getting paid. I'm happy that the Dallas Cowboys realize, you know what? They can't get any better on the quarterbacking market. Just pay the man. Like, at this point, like it was going to be like Cam Newton and Jameis Winston at one point. The Patriots already re-signed Cam Newton.
Yes, to a 1 year deal, of course. Yeah, they did. And one thing that I know Dak's a bit of old news, so we'll get to some newer signings and talk right after this. But one thing that I did want to mention is that I was really happy to see Dak be in a good headspace going through rehab. I don't know if you saw that video that surfaced, and him talking about being extremely discouraged and demoralized going through such a devastating injury, as anyone would. but seeing Alex Smith recover from something even more gruesome and then winning comeback player of the year and seeing success with Washington, that must alleviate a lot of stress. And I mean, he also reached out to Alex during it. So, this is a guy who was, I think, leading the league in passing yards until the lead up to his injury. He was having success. So a talented quarterback, a really just good leader as well. I'm happy to see him back in Dallas, and I'm happy to see Jerry Jones dish out the money to pay him.
I mean, Jerry Jones got money. This is not going to hurt his pocketbook. I don't feel any way for Jerry Jones. I think, like I mentioned before, Jerry Jones in a position where it's like, all right, you got to find a home run pick that's going to work for you at quarterback if Dak is not going to be your guy. And Dak has shown he can be that guy for the Dallas Cowboys. He up until he got hurt, he was playing really well. I don't know if he was going to have MVP like numbers, but he was very much on the way to having another successful season. He's clearly the guy who helps the Cowboys and puts them over the top. And considering how that division is now, I mean, Washington, I know they're on the cusp. I know they won the division last year. With a healthy Dak Prescott, they're not better than the Cowboys. The Philadelphia Eagles are going through a weird transition time. They offloaded Carson Wentz and they're going to rely on Jalen Hurts. I know we're still in that tampering phase. I don't know how many advancements they could do to ensure that they're going to leapfrog over everybody else in that division. The New York Giants might be second or third in that division. They showed some progress, but they still missed the playoffs. I don't see anyone in that division who's better than the Dallas Cowboys when they have a healthy Dak Prescott.
And not to mention a healthy trio of skill positions, right? When you think of the four teams in that division, retaining Dak, you've got the Dak to Amari connection, you've got the Dak with Zeke connection. That trio is remains intact, and it could be arguably, the best quarterback to wide receiver and with a running back trio in that division. So hey, good for Dak. He gets his money now. Back to work during the offseason and getting to full health to start next season. Other news, though, in free agency, in the free agency world, obviously there's a lot of big offensive linemen who are up for grabs. That being Joe Thuney from New England, Eric Fisher, who was actually just released by the Chiefs. They actually released Eric Fisher and I forget his first name, but Schwartz. Do you know his first name off the top of your head, Julian?
Yeah, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but I realize that the Chiefs, they cut two of their offensive tackles, and that's pretty interesting considering how the Super Bowl went. Where if they had a better offensive line, they probably would have had a much better time in the Super Bowl. Mitchell Schwartz is probably the guy you're thinking of.
Yes, that's exactly it. Thank you so much. So Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz out. So that means, Eric Fisher, former first overall pick, out on the open market. We'll see where he lands. Kevin Zeitler, former New York Giant, re-signs in Baltimore. Anyway, so that's just a bit of, the offensive linemen aren't the flashiest of players, but very important for those teams looking to build a long run. Because if you have healthy guys, and particularly the ones that we've mentioned, who haven't missed a whole lot of time, have proven themselves on winning teams, it looks good for teams signing those type of players. And obviously there's this big one that just happened. And keep in mind, for those listening, we're right in the middle of the day. So it's very possible more signings happen once this video goes up, which is unfortunate. But I want to talk to you. Did you see the Jonnu Smith signing to New England?
And the Patriots made that's not the only one they made, right? To this point? Because
we said that they re-signed Cam and they I'm forgetting now. Yeah, you're right. No, they've got something else. They signed he has a. Anyways, I'll find the name, but yeah, you're right. They did do something else. They signed someone else.
All this to say, my head is spinning and Frank's head is spinning, and we're only in the first few days of NFL free agency. Just all this to say, a lot of people have remarked at the fact that the New England Patriots don't typically splurge for guys like this, right? Like, this is something that I don't want to say is unprecedented, but when you go through the last year that they went through, where they were not a good team, there were a lot of holes at different points of their team. They needed to make some changes, and the other guy they looked to agree to Davon Godchaux, who
That's
played
it.
with Miami, the nose tackle. And they may be in on Matt Judon,
I
who
was
was
just
with
gonna say that. Yep.
the Baltimore Ravens. Like Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, they're seeing the Miami Dolphins look really good. They see that the Buffalo Bills may very well be the class of the AFC East for the next little while. They probably don't give a damn about the New York Jets. But Master Bill definitely is like, no, we're going to put together a competitive ass team, and we're going to find some. And look, we're going to bring people over to the Patriot way if we have to shell out some money to do it.
Yep.
That's going to be really interesting to see.
I think they shelled out too much for Jonnu Smith, and I don't want people to think that I'm hating on Jonnu Smith. I think he's one of the most physically gifted tight ends in the league. You could probably argue, young, 25 years old, but his production. And yes, I know he was in a run heavy system in Tennessee. I don't get me wrong. Derrick Henry runs the show there, literally. But for a guy who has yet to break 500 yards, has never hit double digit touchdowns. This year was really his true breakout year in terms of touchdown production. Obviously, he's more utilized in the red zone. That the value doesn't. I don't get it. And this is a team who drafted 2 tight ends last year, Julian, back to back. Devin Asiasi and oh man, I can't remember the other guy's name. Forgive me, but they drafted 2 tight ends back to back last year in last year's draft. So to sign him now Jonnu Smith to big money, it's weird to me. It's a bit weird. But
is this a I don't know if you remember this guy's name. Is this a Julius Thomas situation? You remember Julius Thomas?
Of course, former Denver Bronco.
Former Denver Bronco ends up leaving, goes to Jacksonville, and his stats completely tanked. But he had he was catching balls from Peyton Manning at that point.
Yeah,
he had that one good year, and everything went down from there.
Look, it makes sense that the Patriots are in the market for a tight end. They, out of all teams in the NFL last season, they targeted the tight end position the least. So it makes sense to make a splash and get arguably the best one on the market. I don't know. It's just the value that doesn't sit well with me. It's not the player. I love Jonnu Smith. It's just like you gave up a lot of money for a dude who's never passed 500 yards. But hey, look, if you're gonna if you're gonna be prioritizing that with Cam and trying to get him more on those shorter routes, especially in the red zone, he could see success. Don't get me wrong. It's just a lot of money. That's all I gotta say. But other than that, I mean, we're not. Unfortunately, we can't keep track of all the free agency news. One topic that isn't free agency related, but still NFL related. Drew Brees announces his retirement from the National Football League. He didn't put together a nice little video with his kids, who I believe announced it as well with him. This is a time where I wish we could have Seth Galina on the show, who could weigh in on what he thinks.
That is the name I was just thinking of.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Drew
Brees retires, leaving a historic career, leading a historic career with obviously New Orleans and being drafted by the San Diego Chargers. Remember that, Julian, all those years ago?
Yes, at San Diego. And Drew Brees made the announcement 15 years to the day where he joined the New Orleans Saints on a 6-year deal worth $60 million, I believe.
Wow. Jeez.
Yes. 15 years to the day. He signs as a free agent, and he goes on to deliver the franchise's biggest moment, which is to win a Super Bowl with the events of Hurricane Katrina firmly in the rearview mirror. Drew Brees means a lot to the city of New Orleans, considering everything that they had gone through during and post Hurricane Katrina. So to see that a franchise legend will now certainly be inducted into the Hall of Fame, that's something the Saints franchise can hang on to. Because remember, for decades on, they were just terrible, like put the garbage bag over your eyes and cut the holes terrible, the ain'ts as they called them. And Drew Brees elevated that franchise as much as he could. It was pretty much almost as soon as he got there, maybe a little after that, but just around the Super Bowl up until now, like that playoff window for the New Orleans Saints was open for quite some time. Him and Sean Payton, they came together and they put together some fantastic memories in New Orleans. I'm sure a lot of fans probably would have liked some of those more of those runs to turn into more Super Bowls, but they got one at least. There's a lot of teams that don't have any. So He at least
That is
has that.
true.
But Taysom Hill is going to be the guy. I don't know. I
Not
don't know how I feel
necessarily.
about Taysom Hill.
Not
Oh, really?
necessarily. No, they signed
Really?
Taysom Hill. I think it was kind of like salary cap gymnastics with that deal. Like the big, I think it was like the total value was 60 million, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
over 4 years. But it was kind of like I actually spoke to Seth away from the mic, and
Ooh.
that's what he
Speaking
told me.
away from the mic.
It's salary cap gymnastics, and they expect to re-sign Jameis Winston and have a full-on quarterback competition heading into camp. It's not anyone's job right out of the gate.
Okay.
So it's going to be interesting to
Okay.
watch. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, that's good. I mean, do you get Taysom Hill, who's been in their system as long as he has, and I guess was kind of used as a gadget QB, but at different points when he was used, he showed some things, I guess. Or do you use Jameis Winston, who had that year, his last year in Tampa Bay, where he threw for all those passing yards, but he also threw for all of those interceptions? Who do
Yeah.
you pick?
That thankfully I'm not Sean Payton, so I don't need to make that decision. So
Me neither.
yeah. What else? What else in football here? We've got big topic of discussion here. CFL and XFL merger can be something to be seen in the future. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Julian? Obviously, nothing. There's nothing
Right.
too specific out yet. Just that was the news this past weekend.
Yeah. Basically, all we can say is that both sides seem to be talking between both leagues. I have the one side. I kind of have my two palms up in the air that kind of show these imaginary sides here on this issue. There's the one side that I look at and I think, wow, the CFL and the XFL coming together on a partnership would be super cool. I think the CFL is a really cool league to watch, even though obviously it's not anywhere near the NFL. And despite the pandemic wreaking havoc, I mean, the XFL in its return looked pretty cool to watch as well. So a situation where both those two leagues could coexist in tandem would be really awesome. The other side, which is a bit more negative, and I don't need to go in too much detail on, a lot of players and the Players Association for the CFL in particular, in light of that news coming out, they're like, okay, but are we going to play? Because we don't know if there's going to be a CFL season at all. They did not have one last year. The league asked the Canadian government for money, and there was some interesting moments with that. Ultimately, they didn't get what they wanted, and the CFL just shut its doors for that season. Up until now, the players do not know if they're going to play at all in 2021. And I think a lot of people just want to know, if that's going to happen before they hear anything else about the CFL and the XFL.
So you think this? I mean, I'm not okay. I don't want to say it's you that's thinking this, but it could be a potential smokescreen to get the hype train going about the merger, and let's forget about the CFL season.
Ooh, I didn't think of it that way. And
Okay, sorry, that's what I thought. That's what I thought when you were.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I didn't necessarily put it that way, but I think if I was a CFL player and I saw that the CFL and the XFL were talking to each other, I would be like, okay, but like, am I going to play or not?
Right.
Like that's what I want to know, because I remember the CFL players, obviously they don't get paid nearly as much as an NFL player. Their salaries are what, like in the hundreds of thousands, maybe in some cases not, so a lot of guys, they really need those opportunities to play a lot, especially if those who want to, continue their journeys into play professional football elsewhere, possibly in the NFL. So it's a bit of an interesting time. So those are the two. So the idea that the CFL might still not play, I think they will, but there's a chance they might not play in 2021 versus the other side where we have and I didn't even mention his name in here. There's a chance the CFL and The Rock could be working with each other, because The Rock is like a partner in the XFL, right?
Yeah. He's a part owner, perhaps. I'm not too sure, or just maybe a partner, like you said. But he is associated with them in some capacity, and he also played in the CFL back in the day,
very briefly.
So he has ties to both of these leagues.
Yep, still friends with former BC Lions
Wally Buono,
coach and GM Wally Buono. Yes, says he's still friends with him.
I know, and really acted as he tips his cap off to Mr. Buono, because he he kind of, I guess, I think the story was on Twitter is that Wally Bono was the man who made the decision to maybe release him or cut him, and that was kind of a blessing in disguise for The Rock because it allowed him to prioritize different things and understand that his time and place right there at the moment wasn't pro sports, wasn't pro football, it was something else. So, anyways, it's good to hear that they have a good
and acting,
yes,
and now he makes millions upon millions. I don't even know if he's at a billion yet, but he's making millions upon millions of dollars.
probably close.
He's doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Well, all right. So I mean, where do we go next? We got let's go NBA. You wanted to bring up some news regarding the NBA, so let's get into it.
So Joel Embiid over the weekend on Friday picked up a knock against the Washington Wizards, and a lot of people were holding their breath because this is a player who pretty much ever since he entered the league has had problems with his knees. By the looks of things, there doesn't seem to be any structural damage. It's just a bone bruise, so he might just be – I think he's supposed to be reevaluated in about 2 weeks. But this is a guy who is having probably the best season of his career. He's averaging 30 points up until he got hurt. And the Sixers are atop the Eastern Conference. He had a very good chance at winning the MVP. I don't know if him being away from playing, how much that will affect his stock for MVP. But the Sixers, they got to look at themselves and say, hey, got to win some games without Joel Embiid. They won over the weekend. They slapped the brakes off of the San Antonio Spurs. I wouldn't worry about the Sixers. I think they're going to be fine. They're clearly a playoff team. They have the pieces to get there. And if Joel Embiid can get himself back into playing shape and at full strength by the time he recovers from his injury, he's going to be all right. So, but I think that's probably one of the bigger pieces of news that's come out over the last week when it comes to the NBA. But I'm also interested in this other story with Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson, who you guys know from the Golden State Warriors. This is a guy who hasn't played since a competitive NBA game since Game 6 of the 2019 NBA Finals. Remember that? I don't even remember that game. Klay Thompson tore his ACL, stayed on the floor to hit the free throws, and then left. And then the Raptors had to fend off Steph Curry and Draymond in the final quarter of action, and then they eventually won their first NBA championship. But or actually, that might have been game. I'm trying to remember if that was game 5 or game 6. No, I think that was game 6. But yeah, like Klay Thompson had to miss all of the next season, and then during a pickup game last November, suffers an Achilles tendon injury. So this is a guy who's about to miss 2 full seasons, and he's still trying to come back for next year. And this is a guy who has said that it's been a very tough time. It's been a very tough time for him, obviously dealing with the injury. He's also had to deal with some loss in his life. His grandmother died over the last year. Kobe as well. He had to reckon with the death of Kobe Bryant. Yeah. Everything going on with social justice in the United States. Needless to say, like 2020 was not a great year for Klay Thompson. And he spoke candidly with media about it over the weekend. But to see that Klay Thompson could be on his way back to playing NBA basketball in time for next season, that's really cool to see, because I think he's one of the more exciting players to watch when he's at full strength. I mean, Steph Curry, obviously, best shooter I've ever seen. But Klay Thompson is a guy who, when he's on fire, he can go for like 30 or 40 in a quarter, and he's done it. Like, easily. That's fun.
Easily too.
On like 1 or 2 dribbles, just pulls up and then just scores. I love seeing stuff like that. So if Klay Thompson gets back to full, I mean, I don't think he's gonna be the same player ever again. I mean, if you're playing on an Achilles tendon injury,
that's what I was gonna say. Actually, that's what I was gonna say is, coming back from a very difficult injury, similar to what Kevin Durant came back from, right? Like an Achilles tear.
Yeah, a bit similar. Yeah. Well, but like it's just like that, and like 2 years off of basketball.
2 years off, and being on the wrong side of 30, at least in sports terms. In sports terms, wrong side of 30. Let me hear your take on this. What is it similar to hockey? The time when people start to think, oh yeah, this guy's getting old. is when someone hits maybe 33 or 34, that's kind of like the turning point, is really when people jump off the ship with someone in regards to their age and production, at least in hockey. Football even younger, of course, but I don't think that's the right comparison.
It depends on the player, right? It depends on the player.
Of
Because
course.
like LeBron James is like what 35, 36, and like he's still playing. He probably not win the MVP, but he's playing at an MVP level.
Yeah,
He's playing great. Not everybody can do that. That being said, LeBron James has never had a situation where he's had to miss an entire season due to injury. Klay Thompson is like, again, he is going to go through two complete NBA seasons where he has not played competitive basketball. Like that's I don't know how he's going to go about doing that. So I think he's a very special case. I think if he's able to just be like a good NBA player, which is better than a lot of people's ceilings,
yes, definitely.
that's fine. And worst comes to worst, if Golden State has to add another impact player to kind of play alongside Steph Curry and Draymond, that's fine. That's okay. This is a team that I think, you put another one good player there, like they'll be fine. They're a playoff team. They're a team
Definitely.
that's going to. I think I don't know if they'll compete for a championship. I don't know what teams will look like next year, but I'm not too worried. I'm rooting for Klay Thompson to play well.
Hey, like gotta say this, at least when you think of Golden State and their golden years, I mean, all the eyeballs gravitate towards Steph, of course, but Klay Thompson is that next name that pops up for me, at least. Like one of those guys who was just Mr. Splash too. One of those guys who was super
Splash
consistent.
Brothers.
Exactly.
Splash Brothers.
Julian, some breaking news here, so I've got to interrupt the NBA talk. We spoke about Bill. That's right. We spoke about Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots earlier. Matthew Judon signs with the New England Patriots, the outside linebacker from Baltimore, on a 4-year deal. And by the way, they just signed cornerback Jalen Mills to another 4-year deal.
Oh,
yeah. So,
wow.
I believe Jalen Mills played for the Eagles. I don't know if he bounced around.
That's the Eagles. It's the Eagles corner.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know if you saw this, but the Patriots put up. Do you remember during the NFL draft when everyone was at home? There was like a shot where like Bill Belichick was away from his laptop, and I think he left his dog
Nike
at the computer. Yeah, Nike. They put up the photo of Nike,
of course,
at the laptop, which probably means that they were doing some business today. And as you can tell, they very clearly have done so with the acquisitions that Frank just announced. So I did mention that they were in on Matthew Judon when we were going through all the different names, and now it seems as if
I'm glad we got that one on the show. I'm glad we got our reactions to that. Yeah,
is Schefter saying that, or
it's confirmed. It's confirmed. NFL Twitter even announced it. 4 years, $56 million, up to $56 million. So Matthew Judon gets his payday. I mean, a super consistent edge guy / outside linebacker type of guy for the Baltimore Ravens. And look, I mean, Baltimore just didn't have that money. New England, as we all are just too familiar with at this point, are never going to go away. Mm-hmm. And this is just another example of that. So look to see Matthew Judon in a Patriots jersey next season. But we can continue now, Julian. Did you want to speak a bit more about NBA? Was that a wrap? What's up?
That was pretty much it with me on the association, actually.
Okay, cool. So next topic here, and I really want to get into this before our heroes and zeros of the week.
Yes.
A massive announcement out of the world of boxing. Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury are confirmed to be going head to head, in a all legendary, all British matchup. Between two heavyweights, because Fury, and this is it's uncharacteristic of boxing, because Fury is of the WBC, or the heavyweight title holder of the WBC, and Joshua is the heavyweight title holder of the WBA, and a bunch of other different associations, but those are the main two, and they don't usually cross. But now it's a unification of these two associations, which is great to see. I mean, these are two of the biggest names in heavyweights, in the heavyweight division, or just boxing altogether. I mean, I don't want to disrespect Canelo, so Canelo's got to be in there. But two of the bigger names in all of boxing going toe-to-toe. Eddie Hearn, who is Anthony Joshua's promoter and owner of Matchroom Boxing, says that he wants to get a site deal confirmed within the next month, and that he quote, and I quote, biggest fight in boxing and perhaps one of the biggest sporting events in the world is what Eddie Hearn said, which I don't think is out of the question. Like to think of it when you look at a calendar year, maybe not in a calendar year that has a World Cup or anything like that, but when you look back at some of the bigger events of a calendar year in sports, this is a pretty big matchup when you think about it. I know boxing has not been anywhere close to the mainstream and holding the mainstream and most popular news, but these are the two biggest names in boxing. I think boxing's definitely got to get better at marketing their biggest names. This is another step towards that. And I think overall, Julian, I think these Brits, these people from England love their boxing. So to have two heavyweights, both from Britain, going head to head, I mean, I'm excited for it. I'm gonna be watching.
Here's my thing. I think Tyson Fury as a personality is really fun.
Yeah.
I think Anthony Joshua as well is a really compelling fighter. I'm excited. I think it's super cool that these two guys are going to be pitted against each other. And while you're right, boxing they've fallen down in terms of how they've marketed their boxers. I mean, those are two of the more recognizable names in the sport. So to see them kind of go at it against each other, I'm excited for it. Unfortunately, we're still at a point, thanks to the coronavirus, where we can't really do too big of any get-togethers to watch said fight. I mean, then again, I don't know when exactly it might be. Even then, it might still be a risk depending on where you're at. But two really good fighters from the same country as well, going at it, really exciting. I want to watch. I want to watch when it's on.
Absolutely, and obviously, if anyone's subscribed to DAZN, you'll have it. You don't have to pay those pay-per-view rates. But yeah,
is it a DAZN fight for sure?
Well, I mean, look, every event that I've seen recently, whether it be Canelo, or any of the main events, they've all been on boxing because Matchroom Boxing, which is Eddie Hearn's, has a direct partnership with DAZN, and also I forget the name of it, but Oscar De La Hoya's organization too. I forget
Golden Boy.
The Golden Boy, that's it. So like both of those promoters have been on DAZN. So I would expect for it to be.
Yeah, I'll watch when the fight is coming on it. One day, because I know we talk about combat sports every now and then on this podcast.
Yeah.
It would be cool if we both got together, obviously when it's safe, to watch one of these big fights together. You, me, we get some friends to go. We have mutual friends. Yeah, we could make this work.
I think so. We've got a good
Paul
crowd.
John Still, AJ Cordero,
Seth
Galina, of course. Greg Caltabanis? Are you still friends with him?
Salim, if he's back in town.
Salim Valji, who works out in Calgary with TSN. If
here's a question for you. Now that we're wrapping the episode, we could be a bit more loose. Is it Salim or Salim? Because I saw Gino Reda pronounce it Salim on a TSN feed, and I'm like,
it is Salim. It is Salim. It is Salim. Not Salim. It is yes, you're right. It is
So
Salim
I have been
Valji.
pronouncing it. I apologize, Salim. I apologize.
I think actually, because which is funny is that like Salim has been making it a point now that people pronounce his name that way, and I think at the Scotiabank Saddle Dome, they did this joke intro for the Flames, and they mentioned some media members as part of this video. It's supposed to be like this SNL style intro vid, and they come to Salim's name, and I think they put that emphasis on his last name. So instead of saying like Salim Valji, I think they said like Salim Volji. They put like they mispronounced like his last name or something. So instead of like Valji, they were like Volji or something. So like I think a lot of people are like tricky with it. I don't know, man. Just tell everybody what your name is, bro. Like, I'm cool. I'll learn it. I'll figure it out. It's all good. I imagine he doesn't like anyone calling him Sal.
I could imagine that. Yeah.
I'm glad some people respected that. I never would ever want to call him Sal. Like, how embarrassing would that be, right?
Yeah,
Love you, buddy.
that
Love you,
one,
buddy.
love you, bud. That one never crossed my mind, but I clearly had the pronunciation right. So wrong, sorry. So apologies, Salim. And that's
Hey, I
about it.
got Jan Blachowicz wrong. That's all good.
You still have it wrong, actually.
I still have it wrong.
It's Jan Błachowicz because it's the L is
Bła-
like a W. Yeah,
Blachowicz.
Błachowicz,
I
exactly.
still got it wrong. And I got it wrong in Ariel Helwani's face.
If you want to go back and listen to
myself-
that episode, you can. It's 2 episodes ago, episode 14 with Ariel, who was a great guest. We reminisced about us being Montrealers and him not being able to travel to Montreal for a few years now. I'd highly recommend you listen to that one. And that about wraps up for this week, doesn't it, Julian?
I think so. I guess the last thing we want to talk about, do you want to mention a hero and a zero for this
Oh,
week, or do you
yes.
want to just...
Yes,
You
yes.
wanna-
That one almost skipped my
'Cause
mind, so let's definitely do it.
That's
I don't know if
fine,
you,
because
yeah.
like my hero this week, like it's like this was kind of weird to kind of pick up on a hero and see who would, I guess, work for that one. It's actually been a while since we've done that one, but I say for the hero this week, forgive me, man. I admit it. Like I have a zero. I wrote down a zero, but it was really hard for me to come up with a hero this week. So I think I'm just going to
All right.
give it to, you know what? Give me a second. I'll give it to somebody. And I feel bad I have to think about it, but like, actually, you know what? You know who I'm going to give it to, even though the show came out a while ago and I was very late to the show. I watched it over the weekend, and maybe it's weird that I'm giving it to a fictional character, but I'm giving this week's hero to Ted Lasso. I watched all 10 episodes of that show. You've watched the show Ted Lasso?
Never.
Brilliant show on Apple TV
Okay.
about a fictional football coach who gets called in to coach a Premier League team. Brilliant television. Jason Sudeikis, the actor, won a Golden Globe for his performance as Ted. You may remember NBC Sports actually used the character as a promo when they just got the rights to broadcast Premier League games. They turned it into a TV show, and it's one of the best things you should watch. It's 10 episodes. Go watch it.
So you're giving the hero to the show, not Jason Sudeikis.
To the show.
Okay.
To the character, if anything. Not to
Okay.
Jason Sudeikis. I don't
Okay.
think Jason Sudeikis is that much of a hero. The zero this week, I will say, is actually a TV channel. ABC 10 in Sacramento, California. They had one of their sports reporters do, their sports segment, and they decided to talk about the San Jose Sharks. They had a game, and, you see it on TV. You see the reporter stand in front of a wall. They're all like, hey, this game happened. They have an intro. And then right behind them, or, you see it on TV, you see highlights of the game go on and you do the play-by-play or whatever. This reporter was saying, hey, the San Jose Sharks were in action. I don't remember if they won or lost their game. And the very next shot we see is a pool of sharks swimming around in a body of water. And the reporter had to duck out of the segment and go straight to commercial. I don't know how they messed that up, but they did. Lena Washington from ABC 10 in Sacramento tweeted about what had happened. And bit of a weird one. So I won't give it to her because it seems as if it wasn't her fault. She said she labeled everything. I think someone just kind of messed something up. So probably an editor or something.
Wow.
But
that is weird.
Pretty, it was either that or the play-by-play guy who said a racial slur towards some players who were kneeling for the anthem during a high school basketball game. I did not want to give that guy attention because
Right.
I really don't care to. So I figured this zero was a lot more humorous, at least. But yeah, dude, like go watch the clip if you can. Like sharks in a pool. Not even like, the San Jose Sharks, like actual sharks.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they were in captivity, these things. Like they were in
I
a
suppose.
tank.
I guess.
Okay.
It's like a big overhead shot, but like it's very clearly not the sharks she's talking about.
That's hilarious. It's like someone's first day on the job, and they're like, just like, close the pack with some B-roll of the sharks that we're talking about, like the sharks, and then they're like the rookie First day on the gig, he's like, shit, I don't know. I was hired for this. I don't know what the hell she's talking about.
I don't know.
Let me
what
put
this
some
is.
some actual real life sharks to end the pack. Oh my God, horrible.
Oh my god! I'll find it.
Shit, that's funny.
I'll find it, and I guess off air
Yeah,
you'll watch
send
it.
me a link to that.
It's really
Oh
funny.
man. Anyways, my hero and zeros. I'll start with the hero. Actually, no. Sorry, that's a good story. That's a good story. So, well, with a bright ending. So, I will start with my zero. Jeremy Lin over the weekend, I believe, was playing with a different hairstyle than usual, and it was braided with a little ponytail, like a braided.
Okay.
So the whole look was braided with the ponytail being braided as well, I think. Um, and former NBA player Kenyon Martin, I think
Oh, I see where this is going.
I think wrote to he didn't write directly to Jeremy Lin, but he wrote about him, saying, you know, who does Jeremy Lin think he is? He clearly wants. We get it. I quote, "We get it. He wants to be black." You
This
know
is
that.
from like 2017, right? Yeah, because he had like dreadlocks or something, and like he had that. Like that was from like 2017, I think,
Don't tell
right?
me this story's 3 years old. I thought this was recent.
No, it's that's an old story. That's probably brought up in mind because Jeremy Lin a few weeks ago brought up the fact that someone called him
Oh,
a slur relating to coronavirus on the court, and what ended up
yes.
happening is that the player who said it, they found out who it was. Jeremy Lin didn't want to say who the player was, but they found the G League filed an investigation. They found out who the player was. I don't remember the details of his punishment. It may have been a suspension. I don't think it was a suspension, but they definitely are going to give him some kind of sensitivity training. But definitely, when people brought up that story, they likened it back to when Kenyon Martin
That's right.
criticized his
I
hair.
screwed
Unless
up.
there was some kind of like
No.
follow up to
I
that.
just double checked. It was. You're right. It was. That's where I get crossed up. It was Jeremy Lin's. It was brought up because of the way he handled the newest slur about
Yeah.
the pandemic. So apologies. I let off in the wrong way. But I guess. Anyways, those two stories kind of like intertwined. They're both zeros. You know, no one should be doing this stuff at all, making comments
I'm
like
still
this.
surprised we don't know who did it. And it's not to say that like the player who did it doesn't matter if they're not necessarily known or not. I just want to say I'm a bit surprised we don't know who did it. But I'm also surprised Jeremy Lin did not necessarily want to make that public. Not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm just going to say it was very surprising.
See, I mean, hey, Jeremy Lin seems to be a pro's pro. That's all I could say. The way he handles these situations, so good on him. Um, and then my to end off the episode, my hero of the week. Uh, so I think around 2 weekends ago, Tennessee Titans player Ryan Switzer's 9-month-old son um, he woke up in a pool of his own blood, this baby boy, and he had
Whoa.
tested positive for COVID-19. His son, his 9 month old,
Whoa.
and so he said doctors were trying to determine the cause of the bleeding. And in one of his latest updates on social media, Switzer, the father Ryan Switzer, said it was they had seen a gastrointestinal specialist who said they found several sites of bleeding, and anyways, they saw samples from the biopsy. That is the reason for why he woke up in a pool of blood, and he had tested positive for COVID-19. Anyways, his son is now stable and back in better health. So that is my hero of the week, a 9-month-old son of Ryan Switzer. So going from a very low period, I'm sure very devastating and stressful time for the family, is you know, happy to hear that the boy is in stable condition.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. Tough story for that family to go through, but at least it seems as if there is a happy ending, much like there is to this episode of the Waterboys podcast. We've got another one in the books. Frank, an absolute pleasure doing these shows with you as always. You can check out the podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. We're putting up our episodes there now, so be sure to check it out wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. Also, the Waterboys WM on Twitter and the Waterboys_podcast on Instagram if you want to see clips from our show. Frank, I think I took care of all the housekeeping. I don't think there's anything else for me to add unless I totally missed something.
You nailed it. You're getting better each week, Julian. That is all. I think That is it. You plug the socials, rate, comment, subscribe, enjoy. We'll be back shortly with another episode. So same place, same time next week. Until then, on behalf of Julian, I say take care. Peace.
Peace.